guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a review, and we are going to be reviewing an indie brand. It is called Nabla, I believe is how you pronounce it, Nabla Cosmetics. I have two palettes here from the brand. I have the Soul Blooming palette as well as the Dreamy palette, and I had done a poll here on my YouTube in the community tab asking you guys what indie brand you wanted to see me review next and which palette in particular. The palette that got the most votes was actually the Melt Gemini stack, but that one had sold out and I was not able to get my hands on it, so I went with the one with the second most votes, which was the Soul Blooming palette. And as long as I was on the site purchasing this palette, I decided to get a second palette so I could test the formula of their eyeshadows. So I do own both of them, and we're going to be talking about both palettes today. I did use a combination of both palettes to do the eye look I have on today, so if you want to see the footage of me applying it, that will be at the end of the video. First, I want to give you guys my thoughts on the palettes, the formula, all of that, and then there'll be swatches and then me applying the eyeshadow at the end. So that is how I like to format these reviews. I will have timestamps down below so you can skip ahead, but let's go ahead and get to the juice of the review, which is what do I think of the formula. So as I mentioned, I have two palettes here. I'll open them up so I can show you what they look like inside. So this here is the Soul Blooming palette. There is a mixture of mattes, metallics, and glitters in here. All right, and then this is the inside of the Dreamy palette. Lexi's joining me, by the way. I'm sure you can see her face right there. So again, there's a mixture of metallics, glitters, and mattes in this as well. I did find the formula to be very consistent between the two palettes. So the matte formula in both palettes is the same, the metallics are the same, and the glitters are the same throughout their palettes, at least the two that I've tried. Let's get into my thoughts on it. The mattes are very, very pigmented, but very easy to blend out. I really enjoyed using all the different mattes. I like the different colors they had for the mattes. They have a good shade selection. You have some transition colors, some deeper colors. I felt like they did a good job with their matte color selection. As far as the metallic shades, I really enjoyed the more just like standard metallic shades. I thought those were really nice. I feel like metallic shades are kind of hard to mess up on, and they did a good job, but you know, nothing like extremely different than what I've seen from other brands, but the colors are pretty good. My only complaint with the metallic and glitters, I wish they had a few lighter metallic shades. I felt like they were kind of lacking on the lighter ones. They had a lot of darker metallic shades. I personally don't gravitate toward darker metallic shades because I don't use those very often. Usually if I'm applying a metallic shade, it's gonna be on my eyelid, and most of the time I want light and bright on my eyelid. I will use a metallic dark shade here and there, but not that frequently, and I felt like they were a little heavy on those colors. And then as far as the glitter formula, the glitter is a little on the chunky side, but it's not as bad as other glitters I've tried in the past. It's kind of mediocre in my opinion. The thing I've noticed about their glitters is that there is a metallic base underneath, which is nice. So when you apply it, you do have that nice metallic shade underneath, so it's not like a sheer glitter. And then as the glitter falls away, you still have the metallic that's left behind, but I wish the chunky glitter was not there. For that reason, this shade here, Delirium, is probably my least favorite shade. I don't know, I feel like it's too chunky and it's not my favorite, but if you apply it with glitter glue, it definitely applies a little bit better. All right, the cost of these in US dollars is $37.92. That is in US dollars. This is a European brand, so you do have to buy them either on Beauty Bay or from their website in euros and then convert it. So yeah, it ended up being about $38 per palette, which I think is pretty affordable for how much shadow you're getting in here. You do get 12 shadows in each one, and the pan sizes are pretty decent as well. So I think it's a very affordable price for the amount of product. So overall, I was pretty happy with both of these. I think that they're pretty nice. Like I said, the more glittery shades are not my favorite, but there's only like, well, there's two chunky glitter shades in this palette, and there are maybe two in this. Yeah. So overall, they're actually really decent. I do really, really like them, and I can make those glitter shades work. They're just not my favorite of the palette. So I think it is worth the price. If I were to pick just one of these two, I would probably go with this one here, the Dreamy palette. Even though it has some darker shades in here that I'm not gonna use as often, I feel like the shades in here are a little bit more unique to my collection. So I really have been loving this Lullaby shade. I've been using that a ton. It's kind of like a dusty mauvey purple matte shade. I've been really enjoying that as like a transition or blending out shade. That's been really, really nice. I love this Vanitas shade. It's a really good like peachy pink. It's what I have on my eyelid today. You guys will see that footage at the end. This Immaculate shade, even though that is one of the glitter shades from this palette and a little bit on the chunky side, that's what I put on the inner corner, and I just love that kind of frosty yellow. I think it's super, super pretty, very eye-catching when you apply it on the inner corner. You could use it as a face highlight if you don't mind a glittery face highlight. So anyway, I've been enjoying this palette. I really like both of them, but this one is the one I've been feeling like I grab more often and use more of the shades in it. Because often I'll use both palettes together, but then I find that I'm using mostly this one. So definitely love them both, but if I were to pick a winner, I would say the Dreamy palette. But let's go ahead and get into some swatches now.
Rock from Yellowstone.
Alright, so we are going to start with the swatches of the Soul Blooming palette, since that is the one you guys wanted to see a review on. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the top row here. Alright, so here are the swatches for the top row. So that very first one that you can kind of see catching the light, that is the first like glittery shade from this palette. It is called Honey Drip. And that one is a little bit more sheer, but it's really just because the color is very close to my skin tone. But it does have kind of a peachy pink shift to it when it catches the light, and when it's not catching the light, it's more like a frosty white. It is a really pretty color, again, for more of like a highlight shade on the eye. Really cool, and it does work okay when you apply a nice glitter base, or glitter glue base. Next we have this shade here, which is called G-E-A. That one is a great transition shade. I really like the way that blends out in the crease. It is kind of more of a like terracotta, orangey brown kind of shade. Very pigmented, really nice. Right below that we have this shade here is called Camille. So Camille, that one for my skin tone is a little too dark for setting the whole eyelid, but if you had more of a medium skin tone, you might be able to use that as an eyelid setting shade. For me, it works better as like blending out, softening up edges because it barely shows up on me, but it does show up, if that makes sense. And then the last one here, that one is called Bolero. So Bolero, in my opinion, on my eye, this one and this one look very similar. This one obviously is more pink and this one is a little bit more brown orange kind of a shade, but on the eyelid, once you blend it out, I feel like they're super similar. I feel like they could have removed one of those and put something different in the palette for a little bit more variety. Moving on to the middle row of the Soul Blooming palette. This top shade here is called Middle Karma, and yeah, like you can see, it's just a nice kind of a, what would you call that? Just a nice mid-tone brown. Got a little bit of a warm undertone to it. Great for the transition again. And then right below that we have Garden State. Garden State is a really pretty, almost kind of a duochrome purple-blue shift, like a lavender purple. Really pretty. I really like that one on the eyelid as well, or sometimes popped in the inner corner. It's a stunning color. It definitely catches the eye. Right below that we have Climbing Rose. Climbing Rose is really pretty, kind of a bright pink color. It's a little too dark in my opinion for on the eyelid, like on a daily kind of color. It's not something I would wear every day, if that makes sense. It ends up making it look a little bit darker, more dramatic, which I don't mind here and there, but I don't want to use that on a daily basis. And then right below that we have Garcon. Now this one is definitely a dark chocolatey, almost got a little copper shift to it. Really, really stunning color, but again, it's a little deep for me for applying to the eyelid. I'm not going to use that on the outer corner because of the metallic finish, so that's something I feel like I won't be using very often. It does look gorgeous smudged out on the lower lash line, which is how I used it, because I do like to try every single shade in a palette before I do a review, so that's how I applied it. I think I will try like a smoky kind of coppery eye with this at some point, but not something that I would see myself using often. Now we're moving on to the bottom row. This was probably my favorite row in this palette, which is kind of odd. I didn't feel like that would be the row that I was most drawn to, but I really like these colors. The first one is called Anemone. anemone, I believe. Anyway, it is a really dark, kind of a purpley blue with glitter in it. That one looks so pretty on the lower lash line. It looks so pretty, especially if you have blue eyes like I do. It really makes your eyes pop. And then this shade here, which is called Flowery, is a really good periwinkle color. That one I've been enjoying in the crease quite a bit. It's so pigmented. A lot of times those pastel kind of colors don't really show up on the eye look, or they get muddy or dust away, and this one doesn't. It really sticks when you place it down, and I really love how that looks. And then we have this shade, which is called Philosophy, which is such a stunning color. Again, it isn't one of those chunky glittery shades, so you do have to be careful. Get a nice tacky base down with that one. But it has such a unique shift to it. It's almost like a purple-green shift. It's hard to explain, but it almost looks like purple and green. So I really liked pairing this with the periwinkle color, and then it just, I don't know, something about it really, really pops together. And then the last shade there, which is called Caravaggio, I believe. That one there is like a dark chocolatey brown with a little bit of a red undertone. That one is a really good one for smoking out in the outer corner or lining your lower lash line. So I ended up using that in a lot of different looks because it just kind of paired well with a lot of different things. So those are all the swatches for the Soul Blooming. Let's move on now to the Dreamy swatches. Okay, here are the swatches for the top row. So that first one there is called Immaculate. That's the one I have on my inner corner, and it's such a stunning yellowy gold, so beautiful. And then we have Illusion. It's like the most perfect transition shade for my skin tone. I use that one a lot. I really, really love that one. And then again, this one here is called Vanitas. That's the one that's on my eyelid. It's just kind of a peachy pink. Really, really pretty. Not super unique. I feel like I have this shade in quite a few palettes, but I do really like it. I like that it does kind of pull a little yellow sometimes, so these two pair really, really pretty together. And then we have this shade, which is Delirium. This is probably my least favorite shade in this palette. I didn't blow away the fallout so that you guys could see how it gets kind of chunky. But I mean, it's a pretty color. It's just harder to work with. That's the only thing about that one. All right, here is the middle row. That top shade is called Byzantine. Some of these are hard to pronounce. Byzantine, I believe. That one is just a beautiful coppery gold. I feel like I will use this all the time in the fall. I have hardly used this. I think I used it one time just to try it. It's not a shade I gravitate towards this time of year, but it's really, really pretty. And then right below that we have the shade Sistina. That one's really nice for blending out in the crease as well if you're going for a more like pinky tone look. And then right below that we have Metal Cupid. It's just a really pretty dark rosy metallic shade. And then we have Inception, which is a pretty standard purple metallic shade as well. And here we have swatches for the final row. That top shade there is called Senorita, and as you can see, it's just like a deep rosy pink matte shade. I really enjoy that one. I do have that on the outer corner of my eye look today. And then we have the shade Rose Gold, which is kind of like a peachy rosy color. It's looking a little darker on my camera than it is in person, but I feel like it's kind of a cross between the Vanitas and the Metal Cupid shade. It's kind of if you mix those two together. It's pretty. I just feel like it's very similar to what's already in there. Maybe could have used a different color in replacement for that one. And then we have Lullaby. This is such a unique color. I really, really enjoy it. It's kind of like I mentioned earlier, a dusty mauvey purple color. Loving that shade. And then the last one is Dogma. Dogma is similar to the dark brown shade in the other one, but this one has more of a cooler undertone, whereas that one was a lot warmer undertone. Yeah, I feel like it was really smart for them to put a dark brown in each one because it pairs really nicely with the rest of the colors from the palette. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the footage of me applying these shades to achieve the eye look that I'm wearing today. So we will be using both palettes for the look today, but I'm starting with the Soul Blooming palette, and this shade here is called Gia. It is like a light peach transition shade. So I'm going to take that on a fluffy brush, and here you can see I'm just going to go ahead and blow that out in my crease. Next, I'm using this pencil brush to apply the same shade onto my lower lash line. Alright, we are now switching over to the Dreamy palette, and in here I am going to start with the shade on the bottom called Senorita. It's a really nice bright pink, and this one I'm going to go ahead and work directly into just the outer corner of my eye. You can see these are really pigmented mattes, so it does take a little bit of extra work to blend, but they are so pigmented that the final look is really pretty. Now I'm taking a more pointed defining brush and applying the same shade Senorita just to the outer 1/3 of my lower lash line, keeping it really close to the outside part of my lower lash line. For the next step, I'm going to be using this shade, which is called Immaculate. It's a really beautiful yellow gold shade, and that we're applying just to the inner corner part of the eye. I like to make sure I get it on the lower lash line a little bit as well, as you could see, and it really just brightens up the inner corner. Well, I'm holding the palette upside down, but that shade is called Dogma. That is the dark brown shade from this palette that has a really nice cool undertone. And I'm just using a smudgy brush to smudge this right into my lower lash line instead of using an eyeliner today. And for the last step, I'm going to go ahead and pick up this shade, which is called Vanitas, just right on my fingertip, and then I'm going to apply this right on the center of my eyelid and connect that light yellow color to the hot pink. I like to make sure that it overlaps just slightly, and then I will be grabbing a fluffy blending brush to soften up any edges. Okay, so that is the final look. It's super easy to achieve, and I really like the way that it turned out. Alright you guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this review. I hope you found it helpful. Final thoughts on the palettes, I definitely would recommend picking them up if you're interested in the colors. I think the formula is good, especially for the price. If you feel like they're unique enough to find a place in your collection, I do think that they are worth it. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this review today. If you have any other questions, any comments, leave them down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this review, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.